So, generative AI is completely changing the game for human resources, right? We're talking about tools that can whip up job descriptions, figure out how employees are feeling, and create custom training plans like in a snap. But with all this amazing power comes a really big responsibility. So that's what we're going to unpack today. How HR can step up and be the guardians of this new tech, making sure we use it to build a workplace that's not just more efficient, but also stronger and fairer. Let's dive in.
Look, AI in HR isn't some far-off sci-fi dream anymore. It's here, and it's a super practical tool. It's totally shaking up everything from how we scout for new talent to how we measure engagement. It's letting teams get out from under mountains of paperwork so they can focus on the big stuff, the strategic decisions. The real goal here is to make our human experts even better, not to replace them.
Of course, this whole transformation brings up a massive question. I mean, HR deals with some of the most personal information in any company. We're talking names, salaries, performance reviews, even private health info. The moment you start plugging that into an AI, the challenge isn't just about technology anymore. It becomes a deeply moral and legal one. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the good and the bad of the new AI-powered HR office. Then, we're going to get serious about the absolute must-follow rules of data privacy. After that, we'll build a real, practical governance framework. We'll even see how it works in the real world, and we'll wrap up by focusing on the one thing that holds it all together: trust.
Okay, let's start with the big picture. AI in HR is a classic double-edged sword. On one side, you've got this incredible potential for efficiency and insights, but on the other, you've got some pretty serious risks if you don't manage it the right way.
Just think about the before and after here. Before, you might have a recruiter spending days manually digging through a pile of hundreds of resumes. Now, an AI can find the top 10 best fits in just a few minutes. Or what about training? Instead of those one-size-fits-all programs, an AI can spot a skills gap on a team and boom, recommend the perfect personalized learning module. It's a huge shift from being buried in admin work to making a real strategic impact.
And listen, we're not talking about small changes here. The data is showing that AI can cut the time we spend on admin HR tasks by a jaw-dropping 60 to 80%. Just think about that. That's time you can put back into building culture, into strategy, into your people. And beyond just speed, it makes processes way more consistent and ensures our big decisions are based on actual data, not just gut feelings.
But, and this is a big but, here's the peril. Without some strong rules in place, you're just opening the door to massive problems. You could have an AI accidentally learn to discriminate in hiring because it was trained on biased data from the past. You could have a black box algorithm where nobody knows how it makes decisions, which just destroys employee trust. And of course, data privacy violations can lead to huge legal fines. And just blindly trusting the tech? Well, that can lead to some really costly mistakes.
And that leads us right to the absolute foundation of doing any of this responsibly. Before you could even think about strategy or tools, you have to get data privacy right. This isn't just about checking a legal box. It's about the fundamental trust between an employee and their company.
All right, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. Personal data. This is basically any little piece of info that you can use to point to a specific person. Simple, right? But it's the very first layer of protection we have to think about.
Now, let's kick it up a notch to sensitive data. This is the stuff that needs the highest level of security imaginable. Things like health records, salary info, or performance reviews. This is the kind of data that, if it gets out, can cause real, actual harm to someone.
So how do we protect it all? Well, it really boils down to these 4 core principles, which you'll see in regulations like GDPR. First up is consent. Employees have to know and agree to how their data is being used. Second, purpose limitation. You can't just collect data for payroll and then decide to use it for something else without asking. Third, security. Well, that's a no-brainer. And finally, transparency. People have a right to know how AI is making decisions that affect their careers.
Okay, so we've laid out the risks and we know the core rules. But how do we actually put this into action? We do it with something called a governance framework. The best way to think about this is like building the essential guardrails for your AI journey.
So what the heck is an AI governance framework? It's really just a clear, written set of rules for your company. It answers the big questions. Which AI tools are we allowed to use? How exactly do we use them? And who's in charge of making sure they're working right? This isn't about slowing things down. It's about making sure your innovation can actually last.
And building one isn't as scary as it might sound. It really breaks down into 4 logical steps. First, you set up clear policies. Then you make sure someone is accountable. Give someone the job of watching over this stuff. Third, you have to regularly monitor and audit your AI systems to check for things like bias. And finally, you take what you learn and you use it to keep getting better.
A framework on paper is one thing, right? But it's pretty meaningless if it doesn't actually change how people do their jobs every single day. The real test is seeing how it all works in practice.
So here's a simple, practical checklist any HR pro can use. First, document every single AI system that even comes close to employee data. Make sure that data is stored securely. Think encryption and anonymization. Now, this next one is absolutely crucial. Never, ever upload confidential employee files to open, public AI tools, like the free version of ChatGPT. Seriously, don't do it. And finally, make audits a regular thing.
So who's actually doing this well? Let's take a look at IBM. They didn't just write a memo, they created an entire AI ethics board just for HR. It's a fantastic example of how to put these ideas into action.
Get this, IBM's board reviews every single HR AI tool before it gets rolled out. They run fairness audits to hunt for bias. They double-check all the data privacy compliance. But they don't stop there. They keep monitoring the tools and they're super open with employees about what they're doing. It's this kind of proactive work that builds incredible trust.
And this all brings us to our final and honestly most important section. It doesn't matter how smart the technology gets. If you want to use AI successfully, it always comes down to one thing: putting the human right at the center of it all.
You can think of these 4 principles as your compass. Fairness, making sure the AI isn't discriminating. Transparency, being open about how decisions are made. Accountability, meaning a human is always ultimately responsible. And human oversight, which is just remembering that AI is a tool to assist us, not a replacement for our professional judgment.
So here's the key takeaway. We often think of this as a trade-off, right? Efficiency versus fairness. But in the world of AI, they're actually two sides of the same coin. You simply cannot have sustainable, long-term innovation in HR if you don't build it on a solid foundation of fairness and trust.
If you only take one single thing away today, let it be this question. Before you roll out any new AI tool, just stop and put yourself in your employee's shoes. And ask yourself this. If the answer is no, or even, I'm not sure, then you've got more work to do. It's the ultimate gut check.
Because in the end, that's what this all comes down to. You can have the fanciest, most powerful algorithm on the planet, but if your people don't trust that it's being used fairly and responsibly, it's going to fail. Ethical AI isn't about the tech, it's about trust.